This is Blade Rondo Lost Dream Game Manual Reading. Blade Rondo Lost Dream is a fast-paced, card-based clash of swords and sorcery for 1 or 2 players. With 7 chosen swords in hand, face your opponent on the field of battle. Reduce their life to 0 to be declared the winner. To get started, read on to learn the rules for a 2-player game. The additional rules for solo games are covered later in this rulebook, but don't skip ahead unless otherwise posted. You'll need to know the basics first. Set up your area as shown below. Attribute dice. Place each die in the circle matching its color, with the 0 facing up. The red die tracks your attack, the green die tracks your voltage, and the blue die tracks your defense. Lifestones. Place your lifestone on the space marked 15. Attribute board. For easy play, align the top of your board with that of your opponent's. Breath control cards. Place 1 in Kindle and 1 in Armor card face up in front of you. There are also the Quicken one, but we'll get to that later. First time players, skip to the first battle on page 36 before rereading further. In reconciliation no one could have foreseen, Maria and Sonya have made peace with one another. In their hearts they admonish themselves for having spent so much time picking fights with an inferior opponent. Take up their favorite swords and relieve the battles through which they grew strong. Determine who will play as Maria and who will play as Sonya. Take the 10 cards listed below for your character. Maria 1. Spirus Saber. 2. Glistening Gladys. 3. Bellowing Barch. 4. Consecrated Crossblade. 5. Bashing Billhook. 6. Scorching Steel. 7. Fettered Fist. 8. Dreaming Sulfurage. 9. Barrier Spinal. 10. Impeding Jade. Sonya 1. Stinging Stake. 2. Fluttering Falcon. 3. Adamant Aretherage. 4. Beyond the Rainbow. 5. No Descent to the Divine. 6. Willing Fugue. 8. Commanding Area. 9. Mildred Helidor. 10. Tarnished Morganite. Shuffle your 10 cards, then choose 7 at random to build your hand. Set aside the 3 remaining cards without showing them to your opponent. Follow steps 1 and 4 as described from page 5 to set up your area. You are now ready to begin your match. Once a winner has been decided, play a second game with the same set of 10 cards, but this time choose the 7 cards to build your own hand. Step 2. Shuffle the 40 cards, then deal 15 to each player face down. The 10 remaining cards won't be used in this match. Return them to the box without looking at them. Choose 7 of your 15 cards to build your hand for the match. The 8 remaining cards won't be used in this match. Return them to the box without showing them to your opponent. Randomly determine which player will go first. The player going second takes the Quicken card, places it face up in front of them, and increases their attack to 1. Once both players are ready, the battle can begin. Want to battle using your favorite swords? If both players own a copy of this game, you may each prepare a hand of 7 sword cards to use in the match. Your hand may include up to 2 copies of the card with the same name. When playing with this variant, skip steps 2 and 3 described above. Turn overview. You and your opponent will alternate taking turns until one of you is victorious. Each turn consists of the following 3 steps. 1. Upkeep. At the beginning of your turn, A. Increase your voltage by 1. Voltage cannot exceed 9. If your voltage is already at 9, at the beginning of your turn, you suffer a voltage burst and lose 1 life. B. Resolve your beginning of turn bonded effects. See bonded on page 13. And resolve your familiar. See beginning of turn effects. See page 14. Resolve these in order if 2 or more effects are resolved at the same time. The active player may decide in the order in which to resolve them. Bonded. Play this card normally. If its bonded effect is resolved, replace it in the specified player's set area. The player gains the effects described on this card for as long as it remains in their set area. Though cards with bonded effects have a limited icon, do not discard them at the end of the turn. Bonded effects are not considered actions and cannot be responded to. Familiar. A card placed in your set area via a summon familiar name effect. 2 options. Play one or more cards from your hand. The total cost of the cards you play cannot exceed your voltage. How to use a card. Choose a breath control card from your breath control area or a sword card from your hand and place it in your play area. If you choose a gambit card, place it face down, otherwise place it face up. The number in the top left corner of the card indicates the cost you must pay to play it. Your voltage does not decrease when you play a card. Instead, it serves to indicate the maximum total cost you can spend on your turn. All gambit cards have a cost of 1, and an armor's cost is however much you choose to pay. If you played a card face up, resolve its effects. 3. Cleanup. At the end of your turn, A. Move all face-up cards with a limited icon in your play area to your discard pile. B. Return all other face-up sword cards in your play area to your hand. C. Return all breath control cards in your play area to your breath control area. D. Your opponent returns all face-down cards in their play area to their hand. Adjusting attributes and life values. When one of your attributes changes, turn the corresponding die so that the number facing up reflects the new value. When your current life increases or decreases, move your life stone to the appropriate space. Attributes have a maximum value of 9, and life has a maximum value of 15. However, some sword cards have effects that can allow you to temporarily exceed your maximum attack or defense values. Should this happen, do not adjust your attribute dice. Game area setup. Set area. Place familiars and cards with bonded effects there. Breath control area slightly below your play area. Place your breath control cards there. And then the play area is slightly above your breath control but lower than your boards. Play area. Place the cards you play on your turn here. Card overview. You will find the following information on the breath control and sword cards. The card name, the cost of the card, the cost you must pay to play this card. Limited icon cards bearing this icon are discarded if they are in a player's play area at the end of their turn. The discipline symbol indicates which discipline this card belongs to. Effects. Text explaining what this card does when used. Unless there is a specific discipline symbol listed to the left of the effect, it shares the discipline symbol shown in the top right of the card. Flavor text. Excerpts from the stories and legends that have no effect on gameplay. At the bottom of each card, you will find its card number as well as the name of its illustrator. This information has no impact on the game. And you can see all that fun stuff. And then whatever. Card disciplines. The card and actions used in this game are divided into 5 disciplines. While a card discipline does not affect how it is played, it shows what kind of effects it's likely to have. Physical. A simple strike with a solid steel. The strength of a card's physical attack is determined by your attack attribute. Magical. No shield can stop a mage's craft. Magical attacks ignore your opponent's defense attribute when dealing damage. Assist. Turn the tides of battle in your favor. Assist cards provide a variety of benefit effects, such as restoring life or increasing your attributes. Some will even let you summon familiars to aid in your battle. Gambit. Never let your foe catch you unawares. Gambit cards have effects that allow you to react to your opponent's actions. Special. The power to do the unexpected. Special cards offer you a choice of different effects. And then you have breath control. Empower yourself through controlled breathing techniques. These cards are kept in your breath control area and are used to increase your attributes. You will always have a copy of Enkindle and an armor. The player going second will also have access to Unquicken. Effects keywords. The following keywords are used to describe certain card effects. Physical attack. Deal damage to your opponent equal to your attack attributes, or that of an attacking familiar, minus your opponent's defense attribute. Magical attack. Deal X damage to your opponent. Remember that ignores the defense. Summon familiar name. When you play this card, place it face up in your set area as a familiar with the name, attributes, and effects described on the card. Although cards with this effect have a limited icon, do not discard them at the end of your turn. Use the familiar's attack attributes when it performs a physical attack. You may use a familiar's defense attribute in place of your own when your opponent or one of their familiar performs a physical attack. Response. When you play this card, place it in your play area face down at the end of your turn. It does not return to your hand, nor is it discarded. During your opponent's turn, if they perform an action with a discipline symbol that matches one of the symbols listed to the right of the response keyword on your face-down gambit card, you may choose to return your gambit card face-up and resolve its effects. When using more than one gambit card in response to an opponent's action, turn your gambit cards face-up and resolve their effects one at a time in the order of your choosing. At the end of your opponent's turn, discard any gambit cards you used. Return gambit cards that you didn't use and are still face down to your hand. Secondary. If this card effects dealt at least one damage to your opponent, resolve this effect. Hone. When you play this card, you may choose to resolve its hone effect before paying its cost. Using a card's hone effect is optional. Tribute. Resolve this effect when you pay the cost to use this card. This effect is mandatory and must be resolved. Glossary. U refers to the player who used the card. In the case of a bonded effect, it refers to the player who gained the bonded effect. Action. The use of any card or card effect with a discipline symbol. Attack. A type of action that has either a physical or magical discipline symbol. Dominating Ruin is both an attack and an action. Summon her at the beginning of your turn. Perform the following action. Magical to blah blah blah. Negate. Cancel the effect of a card or action except for its tribute, which must still be paid. If a card's effect is negated, its cost is not refunded, and if the negated card has a limited icon, it is discarded at the end of the turn. Ignore. Treat the specified attribute as if it had a value of 0. Take/deal damage. Taking and dealing damage causes the affected player to reduce their current life. Losing life is not the same thing as taking damage, and therefore affects that state. Lose X life cannot be affected by damage modifying effects. Respond. The use of a face-down gambit card in your play area during your opponent's turn in response to the action performed by your opponent or one of their familiars. In order to use a gambit card, one of the discipline symbols listed to the right of the response effects must match the discipline symbol of the action you are responding to. When a gambit card is used, it is turned face up, and its effects is resolved before your opponent resolves the action you responded to. Revive. When the specified player's life falls to 0, they recover the amount of life specified on the card instead of losing the game. May perform the following action. Perform the action described below. If no cost is shown, the action may be performed for a cost of 0. Like Emergence is an attack with a cost of 2. Secondary. After resolving this attack, you may perform the following action to Emergence magical attack. Okay. Detailed rules. This section is an excerpt that provides an in-depth explanation of rules for Blade Rondo Lost Stream. You do not need to read this section before playing the game. Instead, refer to it while playing to answer any questions that may arise. Hand refers only to the sword cards you have in your hand. It does not include breath control cards or sword cards placed in your play area or set area. Attributes. If an effect that changes your attribute specifies a duration such as until the end of the turn, do not adjust your attribute dice. These effects can cause your attributes to temporarily exceed the maximum value of 9. Example, if player A with an attack of 9 plays Tante, their attack would increase to 11 until the end of the turn. Damage. When the effect that deals damage is mitigated, not negated, that is handled separately by an opponent's defense or other means. It is still considered to have dealt damage even though that value is 0. Example, player A has an attack of 0. On his turn, he plays Crushing Claymore. His opponent, player B, has a defense of 2. She takes 0 damage from the attack. Player A then uses his luminescent effect to increase the damage taken by 1. As Crushing Claymore's attack has now dealt at least 1 damage, player A resolves its secondary effect. Losing life is not the same thing as taking damage, as such luminescent effects cannot be used when a player loses life due to a poison or a voltage burst. Response. 4-1. When resolving the effects of a face-down gambit card, choose one to turn face-up and resolve its effects before deciding whether or not to use another face-down gambit card. Gambit card's effects can only be resolved during your opponent's turn. Unless it is specifically stated, cards without a response effect cannot be used in response to and be resolved before an opponent's actions. Cards without a response effect cannot be placed face down in your play area, except when performing a supporting draw in a solo game. Using cards. Players use breath control and sword cards by placing them in their play area. Some cards have effects that are resolved as though the card was newly placed in their owner's play area. For example, a player may choose to use Dancing Dagger's effect to use this card again at step 15 in 5.2 Overleaf. If they do, they resolve the attack again, beginning from step 1. Attacks are resolved in the following order. Resolve the card's phone effects if desired. Pay the cost to use the card. If the card has a tribute effect, resolve it at this time. If the attack is negated by an ongoing effect, do not perform the following steps, such as by Wandering Topaz. If the defending player has a face-down gambit card, they may turn them face-up and resolve their effects. Effects that adjust the amount of damage dealt or state at the end of the attack are not resolved at this time. Resolve effects that state before resolving this attack, such as Phenomenoria. The attacking player determines their attack or the attack of the attacking familiar. Include the effects of cards such as Days Bring Katanta. Resolve the effects that increase or decrease the attacking player's attack. If this results in a negative number, treat the attacking player's attack as 0. Resolve effects that double or triple the attacking player's attack. The defending player determines their defense, including the effects of cards such as Moonlight Rutel. The defending player may choose to use a familiar's defense attributes instead of their own. Resolve effects that adjust the defending player's defense or the defense of the chosen familiar. Calculate the base damage, physical attack or magical attack. Resolve effects that adjust the amount of damage dealt, such as Sacrificial Tourmaline. Resolve the effects that decrease the amount of damage dealt. If this results in a negative number, the attack deals 0 damage. Resolve attacks that double or quadruple the amount of damage dealt. Resolve effects that state change the amount of damage dealt by the attack. The defending player may decide the order in which these effects are resolved. The attacking player may use luminescent. The defending player may use luminescent. The defending player decreases their life equal to the amount of damage they were dealt. Resolve secondary effects. Resolve effects that state at the end of the attack, such as Warding Agate. The defending player may decide the order in which they are resolved. Resolve effects that state after resolving this attack or immediately after resolving this attack, such as Dancing Dagger. Cards with bonded or summon effects. You may have multiple bonded effects with the same name. Some effects cause cards with bonded or summon effects to be placed outside of the set area. Do not resolve those cards' bonded or summon effects in such cases, and exclude them from the effects of cards that would reference their type or otherwise count them. Example, player A uses dripping dirt, and their opponent, player B, responds by using warding agate. In this case, dripping dirt would be placed under warding agate, and player B does not gain the poison bonded effect. This does not impact any poison bonded effect that a player already has. Example, player A, puppet, extra familiar, uses weeding shears. Their opponent, player B, responds by using warding agate. In this case, menacing extras would be placed under warding agate. That familiar cannot act for the rest of the match, and player A cannot summon a new puppet extra familiars. Additionally, it is not counted as a puppet's familiar for final Naria effect, nor can it be discarded to use Grimm's Gabius. Familiars. Opponents always refer to a player, not a familiar. Example, player A's Minotaur familiar uses Bull Rush. Their opponent, player B, responds with Misty Pearl. Player A must pay 1 cost or the Bull Rush attack is negated. Setting up a solo game. The PenUltimate Battle. Set up your area as described from page 5. Place the second attribute board opposite yours facing you. Shuffle the 5 Muse cards and place them face down to form the Muse deck. Shuffle the 2 Maria and Sonya cards and place them face down to form the Swordian deck. Shuffle the 40 sword cards, then draw 15 cards. Choose 7 of them to build your hand. Return the remaining swords cards to the box. Draw 1 card from the Muse deck and place it face up next to the second attribute board. Set up the Muse's attributes board using the base stats listed in the top left of the card. Place the lifestone on the space marked 15. You do not need to place the green die as Muses don't use voltage. You are now ready to begin your first match. You will go first. Once you've defeated your opponent, draw a card from the Swordian deck and place it face up in your set area. Repeat steps 5 and begin another match. You win if you can defeat 2 Muses in a row and gain both cards from the Swordian deck. Lose even 1 match, however, and it's game over. You are now ready to begin your match. You will go first. Once you've defeated your opponent, draw a card from the Swordian deck and place it face up in your set area. Repeat steps 5 and begin another match. You win if you can defeat 2 Muses in a row and gain both cards from the Swordian deck. Lose even 1 match, however, and it's game over. The final battle. Your long journey is finally nearing its end. Choose your cards wisely. You won't have another chance to alter your hand. The fated battle against Veronica draws near. You will be able to overcome her strongest magic, the law of the immortal. The key is unraveling her power lies in the past. Think back to the beginning of your journey, the foes you faced when trapped in the world of Muses. The fate of humanity rests in your shoulders. You got the Muse card overview. Muse cards serve as an opponent in your PenUltimate Battle solo game. You will find the following information: the card name, the initiative. The Muse will not act until you have taken this many turns. Base stats: the Muse starts attack and defense attributes. Flavor text: a line of dialogue that has no effect on the game. And then the effects text enclosed in silver boxes describes the Muse's action. Some Muse cards also have abilities that are described in a box at the bottom of the card. Resolve these abilities as follows. Passive: the ability remains active for the duration of the match. And then at the bottom of the card, you'll find the illustrator and the card number. Solo game rules. The PenUltimate Battle. As in 2 players match, you and your Muse opponent will alternate taking turns. See page 7. You will go first unless otherwise stated on the Muse's card. Muses will skip their turns until you have taken the number of turns equal to their initiative. Muse rules. Muse do not use in Quicken. Muses will not act until you have taken the number of turns equal to their initiative. The Muse Nesticor, for example, will start taking turns after you have finished your third. On their turn, the Muse will perform all of the actions described on their card in order from top to bottom. Once they have performed all of their actions, the Muse ends their turn. For example, every turn, Diva will use Enkindle, and Various Saber in that order. While definitely doesn't perform any actions, she will cause your life to decrease each turn. While a muse's actions don't have a cost, any tribute effects listed must be resolved. A muse will only perform actions with a limited icon once. On the following turn, skip that action. Some muses perform the same action multiple times in a row. Although the action is only described once, be sure to resolve the action however many times it is shown. Resolve a muse's response effect every time your action triggers it unless something is preventing the muse from doing so. Each time you defeat a muse, reset your attack, defense, and voltage to 0 and your life to 15, and reform your hand with the 7 cards you initially chose. Occasionally, you may encounter Diva, a muse with a golden background. This muse's legend is known far and wide, thus is particularly powerful. Player rules. Some sword cards have alternate effects during a solo game, as described below. These changes also apply to Fated Battle solo game, explained on page 30. Stinging Stake. Physical attack. Secondary. If honed, your opponent will not perform their first action on their next turn. Hone. This card gains a limited. Bashing Billhook. Physical. Secondary. Your opponent will not perform their last action on their next turn. In Midrid. Hillodor. Response. The amount of damage dealt by the attack decreases by 1. Your opponent will not perform that attack on their next turn. Each time you defeat an opponent, draw a card from the sorting deck and place it face up in your set area. If you defeat 2 muses in a row and deplete the sorting deck, turn to page 30 and follow the instructions to set up for the Fated Battle solo game. Maria and Sonya. Once drawn from the sorting deck and placed in your set area, Maria and Sonya will lend you their strength in the following matches. If they survive the PenUltimate Battle, they will continue to fight by your side when you face Veronica. At the beginning of your turn, both Maria and Sonya may perform 1 or 2 attacks depending on your attack, for the former or the defense. For the latter, they will also shield you from any damage that would reduce your life to 0, albeit at the expense of their own lives. Should one of the allies fall in battle, they will not come back to aid you in the later matches. Setting up solo game Fated Battle. Separate the Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3 cards into 3 piles. Shuffle each separately and place them face down to form the 3 familiar decks. Set up your area and Veronica's area as described on page 5. Place the final chapter Veronica card above Veronica's attribute board. Veronica does not use breath control cards. Use the same hand of 7 cards you chose from the PenUltimate Battle, and if they survive, keep the Maria and Sonya cards in your set area. You will go first, and Veronica will go second. However, her attacks remain at 0. You win if you can reduce Veronica's life to 0 before she does the same to yours. And we got the card overview, the discipline symbol, the card name, the limited icon effects, text and clean the card. There's 1, 2, 3 chapters. At the bottom of each card, illustrator, blah, blah, blah. Veronica is your opponent for the Fated Battle solo game. You'll find the following information on her card. First, you will face off against the following information against final chapter Veronica. Once you have reduced her life to 0, her last word ability activates and she transforms into the end Veronica. Alright, so game Fated Battle area, Veronica's attributes, Veronica's set area, then Veronica. Solo game rules. As in the 2-player match, you will alternate taking turns with your opponent. Veronica. See that? Veronica's rules. Veronica does not use the Enquicken card. Veronica's attack, defense, and vultures start at 0, and her life starts at 15. On her turn, Veronica will perform all of the actions described on her card in the order from top to bottom. Once she has performed all her actions, Veronica ends her turn. Veronica's actions don't have a cost. Veronica will perform actions with a limited icon once. On the following turn, skip that action. Even if Veronica's voltage is at 9 at the beginning of her turn, she does not suffer a voltage burst and does not lose a life. If you attack Veronica with a physical attack and one of her familiars has a higher defense attribute than she does, she will use the defense in place of her own. If multiple familiars have defense attributes higher than hers, she uses the highest of them. Final chapter, Veronica will perform Hill of the Golden Heroes, Lament, Shrine of the Angel and Demon, and Garden of the Unpressed Rose when her voltage is equal to or greater than the action initiative, and will only do so once. While Veronica will usually perform Breath of Ignorance in Shrine of the Angel and Demon on her third turn, if the player resolves Bashing Billock secondary effect on their third turn, Veronica will be unable to use Shrine of the Angel and Demon on her third turn. She will use it on her fourth turn instead. When final chapter, Veronica performs Hill of the Golden Heroes, Lament, Shrine of the Angel and Demon, or Garden of the Unpressed Rose, draw one card from the Chapter 1, Chapter 2, or Chapter 3 familiar deck, respectively. Place the card drawn face up in Veronica's set area. That familiar will start performing its actions at the beginning of Veronica's next turn. Final chapter, Veronica last page ability activates after resolving an action that reduces her life to 0. For example, if you respond to an attack from one of Veronica's familiars with an impending jade, and this reduces Veronica's life to 0, last page activates at the end of the attack in familiar's action. After resolving last page, Veronica continues her turn. When you attack the end, Veronica individually determine whether or not her Law of the Divine and Law of the Immortal abilities are resolved. Player rules. Some sword cards have alternate effects during a solo game as described on page 25. The Muses will be with you always. Within every ending lies a new beginning. So sound the bell of awakening and let your tale begin anew.